Welcome to the Sober and Happy podcast, where we talk about all things recovery related, how to navigate the challenges that we'll face along the way on our journey towards our best lives, and how we could go from living a life of simply just being sober to a life where we're both sober and happy. Today I want to talk about something I know every single person in recovery has struggled with at some point: self-confidence. Because let's be honest, addiction doesn't just take a toll on our bodies or our relationships. It wrecks our confidence. It strips away our ability to trust ourselves. It convinces us that we're incapable, that we're weak, that we need alcohol or drugs to have fun, to cope, or even to simply function. And when we finally get sober, that lack of confidence doesn't magically fix itself. In fact, for many of us, it actually feels worse at first. Suddenly, we're no longer numbing ourselves and we're now facing everything we used to avoid. And that voice in our head, the one that's been feeding us doubt for years, now it's screaming, telling us that we can't do this, that we're going to fail, that we don't have what it takes. But here's the truth. Confidence isn't something that just appears one day. It's not something we wait for before taking action. Confidence is built. It's earned. And in this episode, we're going to break down exactly how to do that. We're going to talk about how addiction destroys our confidence and makes us feel like we can't trust ourselves. We'll dive into why waiting to feel ready before taking action is actually a trap. I'll walk you through the steps to rebuild confidence in sobriety, and we'll also talk about the dangers of trying to force confidence too soon. Because while confidence is essential, there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it. So buckle up. This is going to be a great episode. Welcome back. When we're stuck in addiction, we don't just lose control over drinking or using. We lose trust in ourselves. We make promises we don't keep. We tell ourselves, I'm done after this weekend. I'm just having one. Or this time it's going to be different. Every time we break those promises, it chips away at our confidence because deep down, we start to believe that we can't be trusted. And it doesn't stop there. Addiction makes us doubt our own instincts and our ability to make good decisions. How often did you ignore that little voice telling you, this is a bad idea? And after years of doing that, you stop believing yourself. You stop trusting that voice in your head because every time you told yourself that this time would be different, it wasn't. When we spend years breaking promises to ourselves and others and overriding our intuition, it's no wonder we don't feel confident. So by the time we get sober, we don't just have a drinking problem to deal with. We have a trust problem. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. They think, I need to feel confident before I could really commit to sobriety. I must believe I could do this before taking the first step. But here's the truth. Confidence doesn't come first. Action comes first. Think about anything you've ever learned to do. No one was confident the first time they rode a bike, started a new job, or spoke in front of a crowd. Confidence comes from doing something over and over until you prove to yourself that you can handle it. Sobriety works the same way. You don't wake up one day feeling confident that you'll never drink again. You build confidence by getting through one tough day, then another, and then another. And every time you show up for yourself, especially when it's hard, you reinforce that belief that you can do this. Let me give you an example. When I was 11 months sober, I got a call from the chaplain at the prison my dad was at. I had plans to visit him the following month, but the chaplain said that my dad had cancer and that it had spread throughout his body. And if I wanted to see him, I needed to come now. This would mean driving 10 hours to the hospital they transferred my dad to and going through one of the hardest things I'd have to go through, 600 miles away from my support group and all the accountability I had created to stay sober. I was going to be spending each night in a hotel room where if I decided to drink, no one would know. And I had what seemed like a damn good reason if I slipped. It was a scenario where I figured if I drank, people would understand. I had the desire to stay sober through this, but did I have the confidence? I thought I could, but I had my doubts that if anything else besides my father dying went wrong, that I might be in trouble. And then I got there, and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. The guards initially denied me access to see my dad, although it was pre-approved, and I almost got kicked off the hospital grounds, voicing my frustration before that all got cleared up. The AA meeting I look forward to attending at the hospital to get a boost of strength and inspiration, no one showed up. And after my dad died, the prison and the hospital argued in front of me about who was responsible for my dad's body, with absolutely no compassion that I was sitting right there next to my dad's dead body. And the experience of being with my father in his last moments was more painful than I could ever imagine. My dad had 70 years of wreckage he needed to get off his chest, and by default, I was his bedside preacher for his confessional. But here's the thing, I didn't drink, and besides a fleeting thought the night after my dad died, I never had a desire to drink that whole week. As painful as it was, I wasn't going to let that experience ruin the life I was building. I came back home from that a different man. I knew that if I could get through that, I could get through anything sober. That confidence wasn't built by reading a book about confidence. It wasn't created by journaling about my lack of confidence or by saying affirmations to become more confident. It was only built by walking through that part of my life and coming out of the other side still sober. But here's something else I want you to watch out for. The danger of trying to build confidence too soon or without the proper support. I've seen many people rush into rebuilding their lives in early sobriety. They want to prove something. They want to fix everything at once. And that's where they make mistakes. They try to rebuild all their relationships overnight. They take on too many responsibilities at once. They set massive goals without laying the foundation first. And then, when things don't go perfectly, they spiral into self-doubt. And for a lot of us, self-doubt was one of the things that drove our addiction in the first place. So instead of trying to do everything at once, I want you to focus on small wins. You don't have to prove anything to anyone right now. Confidence is built gradually. It's not about grand gestures. It's about showing up day after day and making choices that reinforce your self-trust. This is especially true when you start exposing yourself to social situations that involve alcohol. Sobriety doesn't mean that you're never going to be able to go anywhere where alcohol is around. I regularly go to sporting events and concerts, and I bowl in a league on Monday nights where the beer is flowing all around me. None of that affects me today, but that wasn't always the case. There is a right way and a wrong way to build that kind of confidence. Let me give you an example. I knew a guy in early sobriety who went to the same home group as me at the time and seemed like he was nailing sobriety. Got a sponsor right away, did the 90 meetings in 90 days thing, and worked through most of his steps. In a meeting where he was going to get his 90-day chip, he shared that he decided to stop into his old bar to see a friend that he missed. He talked about how he was able to hang out for a bit and had no desire to drink while he was there. He even mentioned how getting a look at all the other drunks was eye-opening. They were loud and obnoxious, and their breath reeked like alcohol so bad it was nauseating. But he still had a good time and figured that since he could do it once, he didn't see any reason not to stop at the bar whenever he felt like it. I never saw him at a meeting again. I ran into him at a grocery store a few months later. He was drunk and pushing a shopping cart full of beer. He told me that the very next time he went to the bar, he drank, and he'd been drunk ever since. As you could see, he got overconfident. He didn't build a strong foundation first. He didn't think that he needed support. He simply thought, I got this. This is where it gets tricky. While it's true that we build confidence through action, trying to rush this process in early sobriety can be dangerous. I've seen too many people, myself included, try to prove themselves too quickly, taking on more than they could handle because they were desperate to feel normal again. Think of it like recovering from a physical injury. You wouldn't run a marathon the day after getting your cast off, right? You'd start with physical therapy, gentle exercises, gradually building up strength. Recovery is no different. We need to be patient with ourselves and build a solid foundation first. This is where having proper support becomes non-negotiable. We often think that asking for help makes us weak, or that doing something on our own makes us stronger or more confident. In reality, it's quite the opposite. True confidence comes from knowing when to lean on others, ask for help, and say, I'm not ready for this yet, and that's okay. You have to work your way up on what I like to call a confidence ladder, starting with small, manageable challenges and gradually working up to bigger ones. The first rung might be something as simple as telling one person you're not drinking. The next might be going to a restaurant where alcohol is served, but during lunch hours when drinking is less prevalent. Each small win builds on the last, creating a sustainable foundation for lasting confidence. And when you start, it's not about being perfect. It's about being comfortable with who you are, and that takes time. The first time you go to a party or a gathering sober, it's going to feel weird. That's okay. The first time you have to navigate a conversation without a drink in your hand, it'll feel awkward, and that's okay too. The more you do it, the more you'll start to realize, I don't need alcohol to connect with people. I don't need alcohol to feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't need alcohol to have fun. And that's real confidence. I've discovered that real confidence in sobriety isn't about never feeling afraid or uncertain. It's about knowing that you could handle those feelings when they come up. About building a new relationship with yourself, one where you honor your limits while gently pushing your boundaries. It's about beginning to keep the promises that we make to ourselves. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Even if it's something as small as waking up at a particular time, following through on a commitment you made to someone else, or keeping that promise to yourself that you'll write in your journal every day. Every single time you follow through, your brain starts thinking, hey, maybe we can trust ourselves again. So here's my challenge to you today. Pick one small thing that scares you about being sober. Maybe it's telling a friend about your recovery or going to a social event for just 30 minutes. Whatever it is, choose something that stretches you but doesn't break you. Then do it. Not when you feel ready, because you might never feel completely ready. But do it anyway. And here's the important part. Have support in place, whether that's a friend on standby for a phone call, someone else in recovery to go with you, or even just someone who knows where you are and what you're doing. Remember, you're not rebuilding confidence from scratch. You're reclaiming something that was always yours to begin with. Your intuition and your inner wisdom, it's all still there. It might be a little rusty, but with each sober decision, with each challenge you face, and with each time you honor your truth, it will get stronger. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. If you are, please do me a favor, grab your phone and text one person you think that might benefit from listening to this episode. That would mean the world to me. New episodes come out each Friday, so I look forward to connecting with you next week. And as always, thank you so much for listening, and keep living sober and happy.